Hi everyone, warm welcome to the marketplace. Coming up, banks set to review investment and lending decision in the coming months due to impact of debt exchange program. We'll hear from the chief executive of the Ghana Association of Banks, John Iwa.
Banks are not going to relax lending covenants. No. We have shareholders' interest to protect, depositors' funds to protect, and also to demonstrate to our stakeholders, correspondent banks, the regulators, that of course we will operate, we will be lending, but we'll be careful in lending.
Plus, businesses to intensify engagement with government despite proposed implementation of 3 key tax measures. MTN profits for first quarter reaches over 1 billion cedis, while capital investment hits 1.1 billion cedis. We've got details of these and many others coming your way shortly. Please stay. Pleasure you could join us. I am Pius Kojo Baka. On to our very first story. Banks will in the coming months take steps to review their investment and lending decisions. The move has been influenced by the negative impact of the debt exchange program, which has resulted in some banks posting record losses for the year 2022. Well, this may also affect investments in government bonds. Chief Executive of the Ghana Association of Banks, John Iwa, disclosed this on PM Express Business Edition.
Let's look at the system in the right way. When you say banks are going to do proper lending, banks are not going to relax lending covenants. No. We have shareholders' interest to protect, depositors' funds to protect, and also to demonstrate to our stakeholders, correspondent banks, the regulators, that of course we will operate, we will be lending, but we'll be careful in lending. Being careful in lending does not mean that if there's a good deal or a good transaction on the table, a bank will not do it. Banks are actively in the market looking for deals. So you tell me a businessman who has a very juicy, nice a transaction that a bank is saying no, because banks have liquidity. I can tell you there is adequate liquidity in the system, and that liquidity is looking for homes. And those homes are bankable projects that banks are looking for.
And those projects will not go into government bonds going forward?
Of course, the avenue for the government bonds will not be with us for some time.
But I'm still trying to get this from you, that so going forward, forget about my expression of real banking. Are things going to change in terms of the investment decisions that will guide escrow, and then also investment decisions when it comes to lending, that we are now going to see more prudent lending? As long as a Georgia has a good project, a bankable project, you've met all the tick box, we'll be doing more lending to businesses.
I'm sure, given what we have gone through in recent months, of course, the boardrooms of banks will be taking a second look at their asset allocations. That is not to say that there's going to be prescription from anybody on how banks are supposed to allocate their assets. But of course, I'm sure there's going to be some very difficult discussions in the boardrooms of banks around how much of your assets should go into what asset class and for how long, and what the duration and what interest rate regime and the like. But again, you talked about the lending rate and the fact that it is up there. You know, I've said it again.
It's an economic decision.
Right? The lending rate is not like a curtain that you go and raise it and lower it, you know, at will. You know, no, that is not how it works. The rate itself is a derived rate. So it's market fundamentals that drive the lending rate.
Let's now get on to Zoom and speak to the Chief Executive of the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mark Bedu Abuaji, on development that lending could be affected because of the impact of the domestic debt exchange program on the operations. Grateful, Mark, you could join me on the marketplace. You've heard the president of the Association of Bankers, John Iwa there. What do you make of that development?
Well, I think it's a very disturbing news, a very worrying news. Because largely a lot of businesses in Ghana finance their activities through loans from these banks. So if for any other reason businesses are not going to get this financial support, then it's going to negatively impact the activities and economy as a whole. I largely do not blame the banks because banks can only lend when they have the money. And with this DDEP, we all know that the assets have been impaired. And so it means they cannot, of course, provide the liquidity support to businesses. And for me, it's also a very worrying situation because I think not too good. In situations like that, you expect that the businesses will now reinvest their retained earnings. But here is a case where, because of what is happening in the economy, the high cost of doing business, they are not making profit to reinvest. And also, most of them who would, in any way, would have gotten support from external sources are also handicapped because of our downgrading. So it's a very difficult situation, and I'm afraid that it will not bode well for businesses and also for the economy as a whole.
I'm particularly interested in how bad this is going to affect your operations. Give me an example or a descriptive picture of what this will mean to you.
Yes, it's definitely very bad. Because if you take a typical business, as I said earlier, if they need money to finance, either to expand or a working capital for their activities, and they don't have it, they fall on these banks for these facilities. Although we are aware that interest rates are very high, that is the only option. So normal business will go to the banks. If you take, for instance, the capital market, the Ghana Stock Exchange, only few businesses are able to go there for facilities because most businesses in Ghana are SMEs, close to 80%. So usually they will go to these banks. So if they don't have it, it means one, they may not be able to meet immediate financial requirements like their working capital, and they will also not be able to expand. If there are opportunity for them to expand and they need money, they will not be able to do that. So basically what it means that you will be keeping your activities at the current level, or may obviously have to reduce it if you don't have money. And it will affect your bottom line, your profit, and also the number of people you can engage as employees. So for me, it's bad news. We are looking at how we can circumvent this and ensure that businesses are able to get some level of resources, at least to sustain themselves to a level where things will improve and they will also be profitable.
Talking about how you intend to circumvent things, to work things out for your good, walk me through some of the alternatives you are likely to explore.
Well, as I've said, the alternatives for now is to ensure that you are sustainable over a period of time. So if you don't have money, definitely certain capital expenditures will be affected. And also, if you can't pay the salary, all you have to do is just lay some of them off. And profit definitely is going to be affected. Now, for the banks themselves, they are not making their profits. And I go back to the impact of these three new taxes. Now you are imposing additional taxes on these banks in spite of the difficulties they are going through. So definitely we are saying that we don't want businesses to expand. And for me, if you are not careful, the performance of the economy in 2023 will be worse than what we experienced in 2022. Our GDP performance in 2022 was not good. If you look at the industry sector, it was the worst performing among the sectors. Drill down to the manufacturing sector, which is my major concern, we realize that it also contracted by 2.5%, which means a number of factors, including lack of funding, is also impeding their activities. So basically a survival strategy to ensure that you wait till when things improve, and it may affect businesses and those who are also being employed as well.
Mark, we are grateful for your time here on Business Marketplace, speaking to us there. Now let's move on to some other stories. And businesses have given the strongest indications that they will go ahead to engage government on the 3 revised tax revenue measures. Well, this is despite the announcement by the Ghana Revenue Authority that it is planning to go ahead with the collation of the tax from next Monday. Now, let's get on the line and speak to Council Member of the Food and Beverages Association, John Ewa, for more on this. John, grateful you could join me on the marketplace. John Awuni, I'm told, is on. We understand you described this move by government as disappointing. Why?
No, absolutely. Let me repeat what we decided as a consultative assembly of businesses when we met. We find what the government has done absolutely unacceptable, shocking, and very disappointing. A government that is supposed to be pro-private sector cannot begin to enact policies and take decisions that are completely anti-private sector, anti-business. From day one, the policies and actions and inactions of the government are absolutely anti-private sector. From the financial sector cleanup, where a lot of people lost their jobs, people lost their money. Up to date, many businesses, many individuals, many households have not recovered from the ravages of the financial sector cleanup. Up to the point where we talk about even businesses lost a lot of money, even in the COVID-19 era, where businesses had to shut down, and many businesses have not recovered from that sector. Then interest rates increment, then high levels of inflation, then the issue of depreciation of the currency, where an increases in fuel levels. As if that was not enough, in 2023, we began again with increases in the VAT from 12.5 to 15%. Then the increment in water and electricity tariffs for industry as much as 132% for water for industry. This is absolutely anti-business. I am totally disappointed in the actions of the government. A government that said they were going to move us from taxation to production. Is that what it means to move from taxation to production? Many of the people in government management now came out from the private sector. Would they be happy if they were in the private sector, were still in private sector, and these actions were taken? I am totally appalled by the actions of the government, and the business sector will not take it easy. We are not taking it easily. We are coming out with a series of actions. We know that the government, whatever happens, no Ghanaian have any explanation as to what has happened to where we are now. That we are claiming that we want to go to IMF. Nobody has any explanation, correct explanation. We don't have an understanding about how we got to where we are now. And we are saying that we must sacrifice the efforts and the fortunes of the private sector in order to be able to go to IMF. We talked about e-levy was the panacea. E-levy, when e-levy comes, that will be the panacea for the problems of the country. E-levy is there. Now we are saying that's not a panacea. We are now dealing with the issue of IMF. And the business sector, the private sector is being sacrificed. We are totally disappointed, and we intend to engage government. We don't want to go on to the extreme. So we are coming up with mild, medium, and high-level action plans for us to be ensured that the government reverses these taxes, suspends these taxes, and enact policies that are pro-private sector. Now that they are killing the private sector, the people they are graduating from the university, the polytechnic, or all the schools, who will employ them? Where will they get the jobs? Can the government employ?
All right, so John, please position yourself well for me as I ask my next question. We are hearing that from some of your members that it will still continue to engage government. How will this engagement be done?
Coming up with a policy, with a document to give it. We are aware the government is aware about the effect of whatever they are doing, but we want to give them a synopsis or a brief on the effect of their policy from 2017 to today on pricing in the country, where most goods like a bag of rice was 150 cedis. Today we are dealing with 600 cedis. Sugar was about same thing. Today we are dealing with about 585 cedis per bag. You can talk about anything. Bread was like 5 cedis. Today we are dealing with bread of 20 cedis. Eggs, a crate of eggs was like 15 cedis. We are dealing with about 50 cedis per egg. A carton of chicken was like 40 cedis. Today we are dealing with about 350 cedis. We want to come up with a paper, and we are putting that together. In the next couple of days, we intend to engage government to look at this. Because we are supposed to be partners in development, and you can't come out with these things And we are crying and nobody, it appears to be like it's a state capture. We have captured the state, we will do whatever we want. You can say what you want to do, but we will also do what we want to do. And you are in the affairs of the state, in the interest of the private sector, in the interest of individuals, in the interest of households. You cannot do things say that you want to please yourself at the detriment of the people. If you want to survive a revived economy, how have you explained to us where we are aside the blame of Ukraine and then whatever not? Are we the only people who Ukraine and then whatever COVID has affected? So today we are still business sector is still having to pay COVID-19 ladies. I think we are the people who brought COVID-19 ladies, who brought in the COVID problem. It's just very unacceptable, and I think that people should be able to look in retrospect and begin to review. Otherwise, they bow their heads in shame, because you cannot do that to a private sector. That is supposed to be the engine of growth. That is supposed to be the hope of the country.
So, John, are you going to pass on the costs to we, the consumers?
Costs will reflect immediately as we engage the government. Costs will reflect immediately, because nobody is going to bear that cost. And what I'm saying is it's going to have a cascading effect. It's going to have complete multiplier effect, because as the cost already, demand is very low in the market. Now, no business owner is capable of eroding his capital by bearing these taxes. So the growth and sustainability tax that players in industry will pay 2.5%, and it's supposed to be passed to the consumer. Let the consumer bring the money, and then we will give it to the government.
All right.
The exercise duty tax, it will be passed to the consumer.
Thank you very much, John. I think your point is well made, and we shall certainly follow up on that. John Awuni is a council member of the Food and Beverages Association of Ghana, speaking to us on the back of that development there. Now, let's move on to some other stories. And telecom giant MTN Ghana ended the first quarter of this year with some significant increase in its profit before tax. Now, it reached over 1 billion cedis ending March this year. George Yafe has more.
Revenue also went up by more than 23% to reach almost 3 billion Ghana cedis for the first 3 months of this year. On the other hand, revenue on MTN's mobile money business appears to have turned the corner despite the implementation of the e-levy, as it went up by 25% to reach 643 million Ghana cedis, and then March this year. MTN spent 1.1 billion Ghana cedis to expand network capacity, coverage, and modernize existing network for the period. This helped bring on board more than 400,000 subscribers to the network. MTN says it now has about almost 100% of the population covered under its 4G network in the country. Telecoms giant also disclosed that, in line with the directive from the regulator, that is the National Communications Authority, it has disconnected almost 4 million SIM cards that were not properly registered when it comes to the SIM card re-registration exercise in the country. Mobile subscribers for the first quarter of this year stood at 27.4 million, after going up by more than 1%. MTN also announced that it has paid about 1.1 billion Ghana cedis when it comes to direct and indirect taxes to the state, ending March 2023.
Meanwhile, Chief Executive Officer of MTN Ghana, Selo Madadivo, has been talking about his outfit's capex spending for 2023.
Capex spend in the last year, 2023. Well, capex spend, Apollo, I said 220 million, is 210 million. So all in all, this is important for us. Fiber is a big strategic focus for us as well, because that's the difference. I get the question a lot. Why do I get a cheaper rate when I'm outside of Ghana versus when I'm in Ghana? I know this question will come up at some point, so let me just answer this question. So there are 2 or 3 reasons why. The first one is that it's more expensive to transmit data on a mobile infrastructure than it is on a fiber infrastructure. That's the first one. We do not have enough fiber connectivity in Ghana to maximize the opportunity we have. So we have to rely on mobile technology for a lot of what we transmit. So investing in fiber would reduce our fundamental cost to deliver 1 MB of data. But how do we do that? It takes a lot of infrastructure to get a nationwide fiber network. And other countries have done things like infrastructure sharing. We have 7 or 8 different fiber providers, and we can do a consolidation nationally and have a 5-year, 10-year plan. But that's the only way we're going to get to a stage where fiber is ubiquitous across the country.
Let's talk currency matters now. And the Chinese yuan is gradually being adopted by more countries for international transactions. Well, this is coming after the dollar's recent gain in value, which is hurting most economies around the world. But what should be Ghana's strategy? Let's get on to Zoom and speak to economist Courage Botie of GCB Capital for more analysis on this. Grateful, Courage, you could join me on the marketplace. Now, should Ghana join these countries that have adopted the Chinese yuan as the medium of exchange for international transactions?
Good afternoon, Piers. If you could take the question again.
I'm asking you that should Ghana take a cue from other countries that have, kind of adopted the Chinese yuan as a medium of exchange?
Well, it's a lot complicated than it seems. It's about acceptability. It's about confidence in the currency. It's about international diplomacy and things related. Yes. Some countries may have adopted that. I think Argentina, the Saudis, I believe, and a number of other countries are in the process, and China is actively looking at that space of gaining dominance there and competing with the USD, really. But you look at China as an entity and how feasible it is for them to even change their financial policies and structures and institutions to suit them as and when need demands. But the sheer power in the hands of the presidency alone and all of that, you are tempted to say, will that be a very wise move? Can it not backfire? At the end of the day, you are also thinking about, yes, China is a big player in the global world now, but what is the percentage of global reserves held in the renminbi? Really, it's about 3% from an IMF data I've seen recently. And if you look at SWIFT transactions across the globe, really, the yuan's share in that is just about 2%, really. So in terms of acceptability, the other people you would trade with, would they be so willing to accept the yuan for payment for goods and services, really? Those are things we need to consider. And then you look at the fact that what is the volume of trade between yourself and China? And if it is not so much, or it's just about 30-40% of your trade flows, and then you are now thinking about stoking a global, if you like, economic war against the people that have so stuck with you all this while, how will it end up? I think those are things we must consider before making the decision.
Which means that clearly the dollar can't be put away easily. As some will say, the currency is all about confidence, as you rightly mentioned.
Yes, it cannot easily. It's not something that can be easily done. It will take a while. It will take some consistent effort and some fights, really, to push the dollar away. I'm not sure it's that straightforward.
What will this mean to businesses as some already import from China?
Well, yes, for businesses and all of that, if it's a lot different when it comes to a country, and it's a lot different when it comes to individuals. If you have a source of renminbi through your export or your trade and all of that, I mean, of course, nothing prevents you from dealing with Chinese banks and doing transactions in the renminbi. It doesn't hurt you. But on a national level, then it becomes economic diplomacy, and a lot other things are involved, really. And that is what I think attention must be paid to. But for businesses and all of that, you serve your interest, and to the extent you can earn your flows from your trade sources, really, I think you are fine. You're fine.
Research lead, GCB Capital, Courage Botie, we are indeed grateful for your time here on the marketplace. Now let's move on to some other stories. And the Bank of Ghana says it has made several provisions to protect local fintech companies to expand. This comes after fintech players took a swipe at the central bank for its failure to address some gaps. Meanwhile, head of fintech and innovation at the Bank of Ghana, Kwame Opong, now speaking to Joy Business at a stakeholder meeting on fintech development organized by Templars Law Firm, indicated that his outfit is working assiduously to support all players within the space to drive growth.
Roundtable discussion explored many opportunities and challenges associated with fintech in Ghana. According to Kwame Pon, investment within the fintech space in the country is large.
So I think from a Bank of Ghana standpoint, we are continuing to evolve policy to support the development of fintech, particularly as we see both local and international interest in investing in fintech in Ghana. And so what we have begun from the perspective of interaction and engagement with industry to understand the emerging opportunities for them and see how we can also support and promote it without compromising our core mandate around stability, etc. I think those are things that we'll continue to do. And also, perhaps finally, to add, we do see a significant opportunity for even more collaboration, not just among fintechs, but between fintechs and other financial institutions within the country, within the safe framework and ambit that the central bank provides. And so we'll continue to guide the path of innovation and the development of fintech, because we think there's an opportunity to drive financial inclusion, an opportunity to drive investment, and an opportunity to really enhance the overall livelihood of the average Ghanaian.
Head of Legal and Corporate Affairs, Mobile Money Limited, MTN Ghana, Papa Osei, said the integration of technology into offerings by financial services companies to improve their use and delivery to consumers is supporting the financial inclusion agenda.
Of course, with any regulation, there are usually gaps, right? And it's important for the players to engage with the regulator. Once you engage with the regulator, you bring out what the gaps are, bring it to the attention, because we are the ones within the system, and they are sort of the enablers of the system. So how do we ensure that, say, products we churn out are fit for consumers? How do we ensure that we are complying with what the regulations say? We do have stakeholder engagements with the regulator on a frequent basis, and what that does is it brings things that are not necessarily on the table of the regulator. It brings those things to sort of top of mind.
On her part, partner Templars Ghana, Dolphy Mensah, called for more discussion on fintech development in the country.
We collaborated with the international law firm Clifford Chance to put together this fintech roundtable because we consider fintech to be an area that must be discussed.
Templars Ghana is one of the largest full-service law firm with its offices in Nigeria and collaborated with Clifford Chance, a UK-based law firm, to organize the Technology Summit on Perspective on Fintech in Ghana.
And that's it for our program for this afternoon. I am Pius Kojo Baka. You can always get business stories when you log on to myjoyonline.com/business. Always a pleasure serving you. Do enjoy the rest of our programs. Bye-bye.